So the first question, which I suppose is the most obvious, is how did you get into rowing?
My entree into rowing was by chance. My second year at Connecticut College, which is university level, I walked a certain way across campus and there was this thing sitting in slings. I went over to see what it was, and the man, very tall man standing there, said, "It's rowing and you'd be perfect." I thought, now there's a line. I wasn't perfect for anything, but I said, okay, well, what do I need to have to do this? He said, "You need to know how to swim." I said, "Since I was 4 years old." "Okay, meet me at 5:30 next Monday, blah, blah, blah." And that's how that was my entree into rowing. I had no idea what it was. Um, I knew it was on the water, but possibly not in the water, which is always advantageous.
Very good. Yes, hopefully I haven't been swimming too many times.
Yeah, the rowers will get that joke.
Yeah. So how was it to be a black athlete at the time that you started? Because you must have been in the minority.
Well, in my life in this country, the USA, that's how I've lived. And my mom taught us all, I have three brothers, that we are one race, the human race. We are all the same, and each of us is unique. So I had that kind of preparation for the world in which I lived. And my parents also taught us, if you want to do something, figure it out. If there's a barrier, figure out how to get around it, remove it, or just make it go away somehow so you can get to your goal. And for that, I usually say we were taught to ask why as well as why not.
Okay. And you, I mean, I've obviously had done a bit of research because although I know you, and we first met in 1975 in Nottingham,
Yes,
because
yes,
you rode with Helen McPhee at Vesta.
yes. Vesper, and she arrived and said that she was stroke, which is hilarious in the US. We know that in especially your country, stroke means port side, but in the US it means a specific position. And so we're going, wow, that's bold. You were a stroke? We haven't even been in a boat together. So funny things like that.
Yeah, so we must have competed at a few events together because yes, over that period of time was when I was mainly rowing, but I'll come back to that. So you've been an athlete for quite a long time, and you rowed both at Connecticut University or college,
College, yeah.
and then you went on to row in Boston.
Nope, I went to Philadelphia to go to University of Pennsylvania Law School.
Yeah.
Go Quakers, and rowed at Vesper. My priority was Vesper because after being demoted to JV my senior year in university, I had to decide, am I going to continue this or not? So once I was accepted at the University of Pennsylvania for law school, which is a graduate school in the US,
Yeah.
I figured absolutely Vesper is going to be my home if they accept me.
Yeah, which they did, clearly welcomed you. Yeah. And what did it mean to you to row? You know, obviously your experiences both at Connecticut and then on into Vesper Boat Club.
Rowing for me is freedom on the water. We're on it, but not in it. We get to see scenery, unlike swimmers to see the bottom of the pool. Or if you're backstroker, you can see the clouds and stuff. But and it's about, I call it, as you know, the ultimate team sport. I know there's single scullers out there, but with that exception, we have to work together. And it's my belief that the reason there's more than one person on earth is that we need to work together. And that's the whole point. So rowing encapsulates what we need for a better world by teaching us to work together. We don't have to agree on everything else outside the boat, but once we get into boat, we are unified in our mission.
Okay. And what experience do you think from your rowing career shaped you the most?
Oh gosh. Certainly going to the Olympic Games in Montreal, because it wasn't just rowing, it was the Olympic Village where all of humanity was present, both sexes, all color tones of skin and shapes and so forth of humanity. And we could just go into the dining hall and sit down any place. And even if you didn't know the language of the person sitting next to you or across from you, you could communicate. And for me, seeing that, the village is typically open for 4 weeks. So I say, if we can do it for 4 weeks, we can do it forever.
Yeah.
So the introduction to the Olympic Village, and all the athletes there was it just opened my mind to the real possibilities of this world.
Okay, so that was the first time you've been in a multi-sport and a very large gathering of people from different countries.
Yes, of course, in our sport, we have a lot of countries, but that's not the same as, well, now we have everyone has 206 National Olympic Committees, so that's 206 possibilities. So it's a broader world, but knowing that and experiencing that was remarkable. I enjoyed, of course, going to our various regattas in various parts of the world, and the accommodations were always quite interesting and things to remember. And there's so much about rowing, but truly it was living in the Olympic Village that really changed my life.
Okay, and that was also the first time ever that rowing had been in the Olympics as well. So
Women's rowing.
women's rowing, sorry, yes, women's rowing had been in the Olympics as well. So how was that in terms of it was a new experience for all of you?
It was, but the rest of the athletes there didn't know that. So it's okay. In other sports, they weren't sure. I mean, how much do we know when we go to the games about other sports? Today with social media, we can learn a whole lot more than we used to. But I remember having a great discussion with a member of the USA shooting team. It's like a shooting. So how does that become an Olympic sport? He explained to me all of the intricacies, and as it turns out, at that games, a USA woman won the gold medal, and then it was it was open to both sexes, and in part because of that, eventually they divided to have women's events and men's events. But it was so interesting learning about what those athletes have to do, and then I got a chance to see team handball and lots of sports. So I forgot what your question was.
It was just it was about the experience of being the first time Olympics for rowing, women's rowing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want a funny story about that or not.
Please, I would love
it can be edited. Well, when Tommy Kellogg, who was then president, at the behest of Nellie Gambone and others, said, okay, it's time for women's rowing to be on the program. So the IF made its presentation. FISA made its presentation to the IOC executive board. And I don't know how to describe this, but basically, Madame Monique Berliou created the program. So they said yes to women's rowing. And so she said that means 6 events, because that's what the IF proposed. Nobody thought that we were going to get all 6 events first time around, but we had someone looking out for us, and that was Monique Berliou, and made it happen. So that's why we had 6 events the very first games. Sadly, we've had 6 events until next year, when there'll be 7 and 7, which should have happened ages ago.
Yeah. So it was, but even so, the fact that you got 6 straight away was, really, it brought it some way towards parity. Not quite, but yeah.
Yeah, and we won't say who it was that made us row only half the distance, despite the fact that like 99.9% of the coaches were male, and they had all raced 2K, so they knew the 2K race. Did they know anything about 1K? Not really. So we were trained for a 2K, but only got to race for 1K, which made it very interesting. And that was before all of the doping controls had been perfected. And of course, as you know today, there's a 10-year time for science to catch up with what evil doper has done. So I say to people, if you doped, don't come to the games. If we don't catch you at the games, we have a decade in which to do it.
Yeah.
So I hope the clean athletes take to heart the seriousness by which the sports world takes clean athletes.
Yeah. We'll come back to your, because you've been a long time IOC member. I'll come back to that in a minute. But just before we get there, I wanted to, I would be remiss of me if I didn't ask you about your 1980 experience. And I was in the women's 8 for Great Britain that year. So I remember racing you, and you beat us, in Lucerne at the final regatta before the Olympic Games. And there was a sort of sweet and sour feeling for the Americans because you won, I think you won the event, but you then weren't able to go to the games. And I remember you celebrating the win because you knew it was going to be, well, you didn't know, but you thought it might be your last event. I think that the decision had already been made then that you weren't going to be going to Moscow.
Yeah, it was made on April 13th.
Yeah.
I wonder why I know that date at a meeting. Yeah, but it wasn't over as far as I was concerned. Again, sport is practiced differently in different countries, and the US decided to be more different than anyone else. And so there's zero, it's going to be amazing for you guys to hear, there's zero government support of sports, zero. We have no minister of sport. We have no department of sport. It's all done in the private sector, which is where, of course, the sports leagues come in. They are owned by people, and so the government can't really do much about that. And that's so different. So we had zero support back in the day. And the only time we got support from the USO, now it's USOPC, US Olympic Committee, was once we made the team and we were supposed to get uniforms and so forth. So it was ridiculous for the president of the United States to say, we're not going. It's like, and I said famously in one, got printed in a journal, which set me off, what do you mean we're not going? Where was we when I was freezing a piece of my anatomy off last winter? What do you mean we? I, when I make the team, am the one who must decide that, not you. So because that kind of caught on, and because I was willing to speak out, and I had experience being at the games, and I knew how important it was and how ridiculous it was to not go, I fought as long as I could and as hard as I could, but failed. I don't like talking about failures, but it was a massive failure. And I only have one regret. Do you want me to be more specific or what?
Yeah, please. Yes, I think that would be good.
My only regret is that I never got to meet with President Carter in person. He was in the room, but he did all the talking, and there were 300 people in the room. And then he left without taking any questions. I would have suggested, had I had the chance, that we send a team. We'll do like the Europeans, where we won't use our own flag, and yet we'll be there. If we're not there, we got nothing to say. And if we're there, we can help change, as we say in our country, hearts and minds about how things can be done. But not being there means, and I heard from some that an East German actually saying that we weren't there because we were afraid to lose on Soviet soil. This is when it was the Soviet Union. So, I mean, ridiculous things. So I hope that I could have been persuasive if I got to him to help him understand we wouldn't be dissing his administration. We would simply be continuing to follow our goals and dreams, our pursuit of happiness, which is supposed to be guaranteed in this country.
Yeah.
Sadly, we lost. I sued the USOC, and that didn't go well either. So I did my best, as did every athlete on that team. And congratulations to you for going. We're very proud of all the teams that were going. Of course, we were sad that we weren't, but the most important thing was, for me at least, was for the games to continue.
Yeah, and you've said, I mean, I've read that for you it was a life-changing experience.
Well,
games.
yeah, it's easy to forget about the bad stuff sometimes, but it was a horrible experience. I got death threats, hate mail, call, suspicious people wanting to meet with me, people offering to pay my way to Moscow. I think it was called the Stalin Society. And I thought, no, I want to go there to compete. Some other day I can go and visit, but my goal is to get on the water, not in it, and show what I've done these last 4 years. So it was bizarre. And I was at Princeton University training and also doing some work at the administration, pre-law and stuff like that. And the dean of the students called me in one day, and I said, I'm so sorry, I apologize. If you need me to leave, I'll be happy to, because I'm sure Princeton doesn't want to be viewed as keeping the enemy of the administration. And she said, no. The only reason I wanted to talk to you was one of the letters to you was opened by my staff, and it was very frightening what it said. So I just wanted you to make sure that you feel safe. And I thought, Dean Joan Gerges, you saved my life, because I had no place to go. It's easy to say I'll leave, but then you have to go to some place. I had no place. But so the university was quite kind to me, and I appreciate that. But it's hard when you're going up against what we now say is the most powerful person on earth, to say you're wrong and I'm right, and I know I'm right. But,
and I thought you asked a very good question, or you posed a very good question at the time, which is, tell me how many people's lives are going to be saved by us not going to the Moscow Olympics.
Yes, there were several meetings and briefings, quote briefings, which means that you're being told what's going to happen, no chance to discuss or ask. And this particular one was at the State Department in Washington, D.C. And among the people there was the Lloyd Cutler, who was then, I think he was the president's counsel in the White House counsel. And also the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Davy Jones, who was not a man from the Navy, but from the Air Force. And so I finally had a chance to ask, to me, the key question: if we stay home, will one life, just one life, be saved? Just one. So we know we did it for a reason. And he thought about it appropriately. Then he said, no, I can't say that even one life will be saved. And that was it for me. Because it was so blatantly political otherwise. What a great thing to do, to take the life, the goals, the dreams away from 500 unknown people in a country of then, we probably had 250 million or so. Politically, no problem, because as much as we love the Olympic Games in the US and watch it and care about it, when the games are over, it's not a part of anybody's brain. So they don't think about how do these athletes prepare, and what will it mean for them not to compete again. It's terrible.
Yeah. So I mean, that's sort of quite a lot of politics there, and so I'm quite interested to know, and this may not be something you want to answer, about the recent swearing in of Mr. Biden,
Yay!
Camilla Harris, and then also the amazing poem that Amanda read.
Wasn't she something at age Was she 22? No
Yeah.
more than 23. Remarkable. I mean, I loved it. Of course, I watched the whole thing. Normally, I would have been there, but
Yeah.
um, uh, but she was amazing, and the fact that she thought of that last line uh, was before the insurrection. So hard to say that. How could the US have an insurrection? But we did have an insurrection. We had people trying to take over the main government house, and some people were shouting, hang Vice President Pence.
Yeah.
I know, kill who's vice president, and then Speaker of the House. Let's kill the Speaker of the House. I mean, these were people who were ready to draw blood, and they did. Um, but she thought of that around the time, I think it was before January 6th, that she came up with that last couple of lines were just to the heart.
Yeah.
Made me smile.
Yeah, it's we have to say we have some amazing young people in all walks of life at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
stepping up. And she was definitely one of them.
Oh, definitely. And I have a feeling we have not heard the last from her, just the first.
Well, I hope not. I hope not, because I think many of us watched it in the UK as well. And well, I'm actually in Switzerland now, but we watched it too. So, yeah. I wanted to sort of move on slightly, but still on the topic of the Olympics, because there's been quite a lot written recently. Another article yesterday in the Times about, cancelling the Olympics. And I know you're extremely close to it because you're sitting on the group that's overseeing the game. And it's very difficult for athletes at the moment when you keep getting all this chatter in the back. So I just wondered if you could sort of comment on that as well.
The games in Tokyo will go on. That is my firm belief. I'm a part of what's called Coordination Commission, which has a group of people from the IOC, as well as representatives from the IFs and the NOCs. And we work on making sure, each games has such a thing. And we've been working on not only redoing the contracts, but trying to find ways for things to cost less and to salvage as much as possible the athlete's experience. It's going to be a lot different from other games. The rookies won't know really, but if they can hold on for another 4 years, they'll find out how different it is, with not getting to go to the village until, I've forgotten now what it is, a number of days before your event, 2 days or 5 days.
Yeah.
There'll be information soon will go out to everybody, so you don't have to rely on my brain. And then leave 48 hours after you finish competing. And no gatherings. I guess you can't tour the city at all. So it's going to be very, very different. And yet you will get to compete. And we're going to make sure it happens. There'll be a lot of political stuff. I will say that maybe because it was a year, typically beating up of the host city doesn't start till 5 months before the games. But I guess because of the year, with nobody being able to beat up really on Tokyo, now they're at it. And this happens every time. It's sad because the journalists really have very little to write about until the games. So they write about random things, like a musing of a random political person in Japan about the Olympic Games. I mean, I got a call from one journalist who said, "Now, Anita, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to." I said, "No, go ahead." And so, are the games going to be canceled? I said, "Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No matter what the political machinations, the U.S. team, if those athletes want to go, will certainly be there, as is the case as well for Beijing." To me, it's up to the athletes and no one else.
Yeah, and we have seen very successful games, events recently as well. Many sports have now put them on and continue to do so as well.
Yes, and now we have the vaccination. A couple of them, there are more to come, and that will be helpful, but making sure that everybody who needs to have one, and it's awkward because Olympians are, generally speaking, the healthiest people on the face of the earth. For them to need to get the vaccination before us elderly folks like me doesn't seem right, although I gladly give up my space to someone who is going to inspire me. And that's what the athletes do. They inspire the world. And having the athletes together from 206 National Olympic Committees will be a huge benefit to the world.
And also, I mean, you talked about not going in 1980. For many athletes, they only get one chance. And you can't say, you know, they've already had to hang on for a year. You can't say, oh, just do another 3 years.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. It's unfair. And I think maybe 20% of the athletes who will go to Tokyo have competed previously at games and probably were planning on this, you know, last year being their last year of doing it and moving on to the rest of their lives. So they had to make a really important decision. Do I continue another year or do I get on with my life? And so, I mean, that's much harder. The only thing I would say that's easier than it was for us in 1980 is we know a whole lot of people's lives were saved by us not trying to have the games in the middle of COVID-19.
Yeah.
So for those athletes, my heart goes out to you to have to make that decision and to continue to train. But you've done something really important for the world.
Yeah. And you've been an IOC member. You were the first American woman who was an IOC member. And you sat twice on the executive board. You are now first vice president for the second time. So you've had a long and very successful career. Well, it's not career, it's volunteer, but with the IOC. And I know you've also done some, had some roles which have been on a professional basis as well with the Olympics. So can you just say a little bit about your involvement with the Olympic Games and the Olympic movement?
Certainly.
Wider.
Let's see, this will take a minute, but I can start where I should start. Okay, 1980, the US administration tried to destroy the games. They failed. I'm happy for that. But after that, I had to decide what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And so I decided to stay at Princeton. Of course, I had no place else to go. And actually coach, which is the scariest thing I've ever done, and do other things there. But I'd already been a member of the board of directors of the LA Olympic, LA 84 Olympic Organizing Committee, LAOC we used to call it, because of the USOC's policy of having 20% representation by athletes on any decision-making board. This is way back in 1980, mind you. So I was a member of the board, and I'm sure they were panicked when we had a meeting after the decision had been made by the USOC, but before the games. And I was coming to that meeting, and I'm sure they were panicked about what I would say. But my goal is to preserve the opportunity for athletes to have the games. I'm not going to do something to destroy it. But anyway, I've been fairly active sending notes, although one of them, I'm embarrassed to say, was handwritten on a lined piece of legal paper. And I had nothing else, so I just sent it in. And I was told much later that that was what made Peter Ueberroth, president, say, we need to have her here. So I was offered a job at the LA Olympic Organizing Committee. And I said, okay. I knew one person in all of Los Angeles who was a friend. And I packed up everything and got them to move my boat. When I was talking to the person who would make that decision, Harry Usher, he said, boat, how big is it? I said, well, you might want to ask the weight. So, oh, how much does it weigh? I said, 26 pounds. Now, it's 27 feet long, but I think that'll be okay. And he said, what? I said, don't worry about Uh, so anyway, they moved me, and I had been shocked by how much I didn't know in '76. But being a part of an organizing committee, even though it was 3 years out, especially in ours, because there were fewer than 30 people on staff when I joined the staff. I might have been maybe 20, 25, something like that. And we knew each other, we knew everything. We were going from scratch because, unfortunately, in Los Angeles, the second language is generally Spanish, not French. And Montreal was French speaking. So those records didn't help us. And then, of course, Moscow games in the Soviet Union was Russia. So even if they wanted to share their information with us, it wouldn't make much sense. So we got to create everything. Of course, the sports worked with their federations, but for me, I got to design the villages, and that was a heck of a lot of fun. And eventually I ran one of them. I told my staff, just pretend that you're having, actually of the total staff, just pretend you're having 5,000 of your closest friends come over, and they're going to stay for about a month, but they need to be housed and fed and entertained so they can focus on why they came to visit with you for a month. And so that was the idea, that the village, we were just creating homes for the athletes of the world and had to treat it like that. And they needed what they needed. So that was a delight to be able to design that. And I left, let's see. Okay, it got into '84. And my mandate on the board of the USOC, which was preserved despite my being a staff member, I left the board of the LAOC since I was a staff member. And the president then, who was Bob Helmick, asked me to stay around so that he wanted me to chair the eligibility committee. I said, well, I'm happy to do that on one condition. He said, what's that? I said, that we end these idiotic rules, that we make it possible for athletes and coaches to have support. He said, absolutely, that's what I want. I said, okay, I'll do it. So for the 2 years between '84 and '86, I was still involved with USO, now PC, and did something that was really important to me. And lo and behold, I was asked to help Anchorage with their Olympic bid. And so I did. I was a volunteer. And which was why I was in Lausanne. We say it Lausanne, which is not quite right.
We all have all different pronunciations.
Yeah. In the Olympic city. And I was elected. It was incredible. So 10 years after my first experience in the Olympic movement, I was elected to be a member of the governing body of the Olympic movement worldwide. It's incredible. And these years, I've been doing work to make it what it says it is. You invite the youth of the world, that means girls and boys, or men and women. And good governance means that you have people who look like the world on your board. And I'm proud to say, although when I arrived at the IOC, I was the 5th woman who'd been elected. I don't know, 5 out of 100. I don't know what that percentage is, but not enough. And I'm proud to say that today, the IOC is made up of 38% women. No, that sounds like a person is 38% a woman. 38% of the membership made up of women. Yes, are women. And at the games, we'll be very close in Tokyo. We will be there in Paris, 50-50 for men and women. Opportunities to compete. We need more coaches, although, as I said earlier, coaching is a scary thing, especially if you have had no training. And I had no training. And those kids would I realized that if I told them to jump off a cliff and that would make them faster, they would do it. And that's way too much power for one person to have. Although I did enjoy sending them off and saying to them, okay, guys, come back dry. That's the only goal. don't flip your boat. The novice, I had the freshman team to teach them everything about the sport and so forth. It was fun, but too much.
Well, I think it is scary to teach novices actually, because they don't know what they don't know.
Exactly.
And so it's you have a very big blank sheet to fill in. It's easier if people have been rowing for a while. So I think coaching the beginners is the most difficult thing that we do in coaching. So
yeah, then we had for our final race, this is Princeton. They have one of the most amazing boathouses in this country, and tons of money in their endowment. And so they bought an 8 for the women's varsity. It arrives, and it is so slick, it's almost impossible for the varsity to set up and row. So guess what happens?
The beginners.
The freshmen get the boat. So, oh my God. Don't let them know they're rowing in the boat the varsity can't manage. And I said, okay. So I put a little tiger on it, because Princeton Tigers on the boat say, okay, this is our tiger. We're going to ride it and we're going to go fast, to kind of make it like, okay, they can't deal with it, but we can. And we did okay.
Good.
They did okay. And I'm still friends with a couple of the women in the boat who, way too late, they used to always ask me to tell them a story before, the night before. Years later, one of the athletes told me, we asked you to tell a story, but those stories always scared us and none of us slept. Somebody should have told me. I was not helping. I would have changed, but I thought it was so funny. It's too much later to make a difference, but my intention certainly was not to scare them.
No. Yeah. So I'm going to just move on to a couple of final things, really. I mean, I would love to ask you about the LA Foundation, which you've obviously been a part of for a very long time, which has accrued quite a lot of money and sounds like it's done amazing work. And then also your Tubman Truth.
Okay.
I'd like to ask you about those two, probably briefly, because then I have a couple of slightly questions about, probably for the UK audience, to ask you.
Okay. First, the LA84 Foundation was the best job in the world for me. I never would have thought that it could exist, but there I was on the ground floor putting together a foundation for youth and sport. And when I became master of that universe, I decided that we needed to, of course, with my senior staff, our motto was, we support youth sports and help with the understanding of sports and society, because it has a huge effect. And nobody's really talking about that. So we were free to have conferences and to, was it when you get someone to do a research for you, we had people who were able to do research, and we were able to do a lot of leading things, as well as support youth sport. So you talked about money. I'm very proud of this too. We started with $93 million from the 84 games. The USOPC got 60%, we got less, 40%. And we spent $250 million while I was there. And I left with the endowment being around $160 million. So there was still plenty of money to do good things. And I'm grateful to the board, who included among its members Rayford Johnson, who passed away recently. And it was an incredible experience that we could create things. We did stuff the IOC wouldn't do. We were the first to digitize all of the official reports. People still come to our site and to the IOCs because it's easier to deal with, I guess. So it was wonderful. Now, once I left there, I left with 2 years already scheduled. I wanted to write my memoir, and I wanted to make sure that LA got the 24 games. Well, the memoir was done, but we got the 28 games, which is not bad at all. Then what? And then I decided the thing I wanted to do most was to end modern slavery, which people don't know. Right now, there are 40 million people who are enslaved, who cannot make decisions about their life. And we need to end that. We need to end that. So I created Tubman Truth for Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth to put a stake in the ground and say no more, especially around sports activities. The notion of women being shipped in to service men is just aberrant. I'm having trouble pronouncing that one too.
Abhorrent.
Thank you. And unacceptable. And so I've been working with lots of organizations. I wish I had enough money to write a giant check to solve the problem. I do not. So I've been talking to people and working with and making adjustments to manage this and to make sure that people know what's happening and how to determine whether they are actually taking part in it, as some people unwittingly do.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm sure we'll see more of that, because everything you've done, you've made successful, which I'm sure has been by lots of hard work. Those things don't happen by accident. So we've obviously got a British audience this is going out to, and so I don't know how much you know. You've obviously been in the UK quite a bit in terms of events and things, and I don't know whether you could perhaps say how we might appeal to more communities within the UK to come into Rome, and whether you have any ideas of advice that you might give us on that one.
Well, there's several things. It depends on which age group you're addressing. For parents, sports is one of the best things, especially team sports, is one of the best things you can do for your kids, to let them have that experience of working together with people that they may or may not know for a common goal. And that's toward a common goal. And it should be fun, by the way. Sports for kids should be fun, because if it's not fun, they'll stop doing it. So it shouldn't be about winning. It should be about the experience. So it's great for kids to want to do better in school and to stay in school. And for the rest of your life, it's really important. In the US, sorry about this, but again, in the US, women who graduate from college who've taken part in collegiate sport get hired because the people in the business world understand the sports world is very important. So there are additional opportunities, and while each sport has its own specific approach to it, basically it's something that we do. I describe sports as a uniquely human enterprise. No one else, no other species sets up hurdles and hops across them to see who can get there first. And as I say for my rowing friends, I've seen ants crawl on the twigs. I've never seen them line up those twigs and race across the puddle of water. It's what we do, and we love it, we appreciate it. So I consider sports, access to sports, a birthright. And we have a lot more work to do. And in communities throughout the world, there are simple ways to involve kids and adults in sport. And I hope, we can share things from the foundation, or just talking to people about how much benefit it could be to a community.
Yep.
Of course, right now is not the best time.
Right.
Before long, it makes this, sports is also about storytelling and an inspiration. So you can be inspired by the challenges faced by athletes and how they attempt to overcome those, whether they're successful or not. It's always inspirational, and each community can feel good if they support these types of activities.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And so you've actually very neatly brought me on to my next question. We're getting towards the end now. Is how have you survived lockdown, and how have you survived COVID, and how's it been for you? I mean, are you all virtually meetinged out, or?
Well, for example, today for me started, 1:30 a.m., 2 o'clock for a 3 o'clock meeting, making sure everything was set up and I had enough coffee and water to survive it. Um, it is different. I'm so fortunate. I live in this incredible place called Santa Monica. So I have my backyard I could go out and look at, walk around. I'm looking out one of the windows now at my bicycle, which is still exactly where it was for some time. And I'm noticing there's rust on the chain, so I better do something about that. It's hard. It's really hard to be alone. And I noticed that my ability to be clear in what I say has been affected, because in my brain, it goes really fast and it's all understandable. But expressing what's going on up there, not as easy. So I'm sure I'm losing some of my vocal capacity. And it's not just because of the gray hairs, it's because of lack of opportunity. The other thing is, you don't learn as much when it's only you.
Yeah.
At least I don't. I have not learned it. And I realized even for signing up or trying to get a COVID vaccine, I had no one to rely on. So I spent hours on the internet figuring out how to get it done. But it's, to me, it's too isolating. I'm sure big businesses will find ways to save money by people not coming into the office so much, but we're humans. We like sport and we like being together.
Yeah.
So it's been tough. I did cheat once. My nephew came by on his 25th birthday and I hugged him because I said, either we'll be around for a while or not, but this date won't come again. So I'm doing it.
Very good.
And
yeah.
We both survived so far.
Okay, and last few questions for you, and these should be very quick, I think. So, what's your favorite book?
Oh, gosh, I've got so many. Can I answer with the author?
Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, my favorite author has passed away. Her name is Octavia Butler, and she wrote some amazing science fiction, and a book about skin color and what happens because of it by Toni Morrison called Playing in the Dark.
Okay.
So
good. Well, thank you. Favorite film?
Haven't seen it yet. Hope it comes out.
Okay. Your motto in life?
I don't think I have one. I strive to make sure that people have opportunity, because from opportunity, magnificent things can arrive. But if you don't have access or opportunity, everything stays the same. So, well, I guess my motto nowadays is this: we are one race, the human race. We are all the same and we are each unique. And until we all believe that, we're going to have issues with racism, discrimination. We're one race. So I guess I do have a motto. We're one race, the human race.
Okay, thank you. And then the final one is, and you've sort of, we've already mentioned a couple of them, and in your book you mentioned several role models. So who would you say was your greatest role model?
Well, of course, my mother comes first, but my historical role model was Harriet Tubman, because she not only gained her own freedom, but she had the courage to go back into the dangerous place where she could have been put back into slavery enough times to bring 300 people out. Wow. Then she became a spy for the Union Army. And then they decided women with rifles was not such a good idea. So then she decided to continue her work and became responsible for a field hospital for people. And eventually, well into her latter years, she was still serving people by having a place for the elderly to live. So absolutely, Harriet Tubman.
Okay. Thank you so much, Anita. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I could have gone on for hours because, you know, you mentioned coaching and things, and there's some of my
No,
passions, and women in
yeah.
coaching particularly. But another day, we have to have
And
a.
we didn't talk about me being vice president of FISA forever.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I did have it in my notes that you were also the first vice president for World Rowing as well. So, and all the amazing things that you've done for sport, you know. So, but I think we've probably given, hopefully, Wendy a lot of information.
Okay,
and,
enough for her.
and she'll be able to put it into, you know, some into a good, I'm sure, into a good presentation for you on your behalf, or my behalf as well. So thank you so much, and I really look forward to seeing you in person. I rebooked my ticket for Tokyo. So if not before, hopefully I'll see you there.
Okay, absolutely. Well, let's make it a date.
Okay, all right. Well, take care, and thank you so
Thanks.
much.
It's wonderful seeing you.
Okay, thanks. Bye.